CNN has also learned that last week, the U.S. and Iran were closing in on a deal. But Trump's social media frenzy and media interviews hurt the negotiations. Some Trump officials privately acknowledged to CNN that Trump's public commentary has, in fact, been detrimental to these talks.
My sense is that the president doesn't have a clear idea of what he wants. He has a general idea. I think if I were chief negotiator for Iran, what I would do what the Iranians always do. I would just lie. Say, we're going to give up our nukes, take them, we'll arrange this, we'll negotiate the means, and we'll get this done. And then the reason being, the real nuclear weapon is the Strait of Hormuz. You don't have to go and mess around with A-bombs. You have a choke point where the Iranians have humbled the whole free enterprise system. They panicked everybody. Every American watching this program and walking the streets that has a car is looking every day at the price of gasoline, and their lives are upended. This was a war that they had no idea was going to last this long. It's so messy. And no one knows really when it's going to end or whether the president will drag his heels and pull as much as he can, temporizing, ad hoc, improvise.
So, Horace, to Geraldo's point, I mean, there's been, Reuters had an interesting story about European allies being afraid that an inexperienced U.S. negotiating team is pushing for a swift, headline-grabbing framework for Iran that would entrench rather than resolve deeper problems. The concern, according to the diplomats, is that not that there won't be an agreement, it's that there will be a bad initial agreement that creates endless downstream problems. Another negotiator said, it took us 12 years and immense technical work. Does anyone think that this can be done in 21 hours?
I'm really surprised to hear that the chocolatiers of planet Earth are complaining about the leadership that is being shown in this effort. We now know that they had developed a missile capacity that actually could reach the greatest croissant and coffee bars in Europe. And yet, only America stepped in to act.
I was wondering where the chocolatier thing came from. I was wondering if I missed that memo.
Well, I mean, look, as we've discussed before, that may be true, but it also begs the question, why didn't the Trump administration even bother to involve the Europeans in a decision to go into this war? But then secondly, on the issue of whether Trump just wants a headline, is it a risk here that he might get a headline, but that the real work of verifying, removing nuclear materials, all of that gets left for someone else to deal with, or gets left for the indefinite future in which we're just going back and forth with the Iranians for years and years and years about how to actually make sure that this thing is verified?
Yeah, this gives new meaning to loose lips sink ships. I mean, literally, he is putting our safety at risk by not being disciplined. And what concerns me most of all is that as I'm moving around Georgia and talking to people, the affordability issue is still not being addressed. Gas prices are still going up across this nation, and there is a concept for a plan of war. There is no plan. And it is creating chaos in the lives of people. And I think you're going to see this reflected in the way that people show up this election year, this midterm cycle, to express their frustration with Donald Trump.
The president himself seems to be getting frustrated. The Wall Street Journal had a piece about this, as we talked about in the introduction here. And he's distracted. He wants to get back to the ballroom. He, at one point, mused that he should award himself the nation's highest military honor, the Medal of Honor.
Was it?
I don't know.
Yes, it was a joke.
Maybe
That's how we joke. I mean, come on.
Maybe it was a
clearly
joke.
a joke.
But Trump wants this thing done, and it's not done, and it may not be done. I mean, he did extend the deadline. He extended it probably another day. So it may not be done even with that extended deadline.
That's the biggest disadvantage he has in this negotiation. He wants it resolved because he wants the oil prices to go back down. He wants the gas prices to go back down. He wants inflation to go back down. And he doesn't have any control over that. Iran still controls the Strait of Hormuz. So that means he's in a position to make a bad deal. And I don't think he wants to be in that position. But that's the reason why you have decisions that are being made where they're keeping him out of the room because they're afraid he's so mercurial.
No, that's not why. That's not what the reporting said. That's not what the reporting said.
He's concerned. It sounds like he's nervous that whatever comes out of this might be compared to the JCPOA. He's been sending.
But he should be concerned about whether or not we're going to revert back to a plan that wasn't particularly serving this country.
But I guess my point is that
if
he thinks that it's even a close call, that what he might get out of this is substantially similar enough that people might compare it to the thing that he pulled out of. That seems to indicate a state of mind here.
But the Wall Street Journal, this report, made it clear that he's actually really involved and he's been hesitant to make moves that could cost American lives. He's doing the opposite of what we were told by a lot of Democrats early on, that he was impulsive, that he's a warmonger. The reporting suggests completely the opposite. No. I mean, part of the reason why they wanted to pull him out of the room for some of the conversations on the rescuing of American pilots was because he was eager to get minute-by-minute updates because he actually wanted to protect an American citizen. That's actually something that we would want from our president, although can it get in the way? Sure, we've all been in positions where maybe we're a little bit too eager for an update from God knows what, but that's the reality.
He thought this war would be over in days. He had no idea.
He said from the beginning.
He had no idea that it was going to be this protracted struggle, and this fight, this gutter fight, this knife fight. He had no idea, and because it is improv, you never know where sometimes it's genius, and other times it's disastrous. What's going to happen in Islamabad if the Iranians say you have to blink first in terms of the Strait of Hormuz? What's going to happen? And there'll be an impasse. What's the president going to say? You're going to wipe out your civilization?
Well, we have the leverage right now over Iran. We don't have to worry about anything beyond right now the politics, which is an important piece of all of this.
What leverage do we have?
Well, we have double the amount of air forces right now
and yet we're still
in and
not
around
winning.
the region.
So you could say that
the
whole western of Europe has an advantage over Iran. If you were just talking about the United States muscle compared to Iranian muscle, of course the United States has the muscle.
Then we do have...
It's the question of whether or not you really want to use all that to what? What do you want to do? Blow up the bridges?
When the Strait of
Hormuz...
When the Strait of Hormuz is slowed down or stopped, does it hurt the United States as much as it hurts Iran economically? That's a big piece of that is a very big piece of the leverage that we have. It's not like anything. But I'm sorry, but we do have an economic leverage point over Iran.
We're in that place right now where the Strait of Hormuz is shut down.
It is.
And we will find out exactly how much leverage that gives us because it's been a minute since the blockade has worked. But Iran is we're not at a deal yet. We have not.
We're not at a deal yet.
Iran has more cards than the Trump administration was ever willing to admit. And we are the world's greatest military power.
What are the cards? We have one, right?
Let me finish. We are the world's greatest military power, the United States. We have a $1 trillion military budget. We spend more on our defense than the next 10 nations combined. Iran is not even in that list. They're a middle power. And yet after how many days has it been now? 48 days we've been at war with them, and we still have 51. We still haven't been able to defeat them because they control the Strait of Hormuz. Something that everyone who thought about this knew that was likely to happen, except Donald Trump was so mercurial again that he was willing to rush in without thinking about the consequences.
No, I know that is a piece of the talking point.
No, that's the reality.
But the reality is, from a military perspective, we could, in fact, destroy Iran. We're choosing not to do that because that would be, in fact, a war crime. Exactly
and
my
Trump
point.
is threatening genocide on a regular basis.
No, he's
he did so on Easter.
No, so Jason, let me let you finish your point so we can understand where you're going with that.
Where I'm going is that we had clear military objectives, which we have achieved. We have a greater vulnerability. That's not just for the United States, but for the world, that the Strait of Hormuz has been under the control of Iran. That is not in the best interest of anyone. This right now is making that point. The Strait of Hormuz is supposed to be open for every single country to travel through. And if we're able to...
That was not a military objective. The Strait of Hormuz was open when it started,
but so it's not. So
yeah, but if it was, would that not be a win for the globe?
Yes,
of course,
Yes, it would be.
But that would
So
also,
that's where we're
but
trying
just
to
to
go.
be clear, that would be the status quo
Thank you.
prior to the war. That
No,
wouldn't be
prior to
any
the war,
new-
Iran had control of the Strait of Hormuz. It was a different kind of...
Not only
I didn't
that,
notice
it
it.
was
I was
always
paying
under
$3
threat.
a
Not only
gallon.
that, they
I
were
paid
The
$3 a
status
gallon, now
quo
I'm paying
prior to the
$4.50.
war was that
were
there
you
was
paying
free
2 years
travel
ago?
through the Strait of Hormuz.
But-
and maybe to your point, Iran could have utilized perhaps control over the strait.
That's
but they
always
never,
the threat. But that's
they
always the threat.
Yeah, but they
Prior.
didn't. But they didn't. So getting us back to where we were on February 28th, that would be sort of like the minimum baseline
Not true.
consequence of this conflict.
Not true at
It